Renewing our minds. From Romans chapter 12, 2 and 3. And do not be conformed to this world any longer with its superficial values and customs, but be transformed and progressively changed as you mature spiritually by the renewing of your mind, focusing on godly values and ethical attitudes, so that you may prove for yourselves what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect in God's plan and purpose for you. For by grace of God given to me, I say to every one of you, not to think more highly of yourselves and of your importance and ability than you ought to think, but to think so as to have sound judgment, as God has apportioned to each a degree of faith and a purpose designed for service. For those of you who have attended the last couple of Sundays, you know that we have been focusing on service and through our spiritual gifts. And so, Paul is reminding us as we answer this call to refresh and renew our minds and to not to gain or to go by the world's standards, but to stay focused on God and God's way. A source on the internet defines renewing the mind this way. It is God's will and delight that we actively resist being conformed to this world and seek instead to be transformed by the renewing of our minds.
Amen. Amen.
The Greek word nous, that's N-O-U-S, translated as mind in verse 2, includes but goes far beyond intellectual, cognitive, and religious knowledge. It denotes a deeper thing. It denotes a conscious and encompasses faculties of perception and understanding. The renewing of the mind is also a reflective awareness, an innate awareness deep down inside us that shows us and teaches us the understandings of perception as God would see us understand. Our perceptions and understanding influences how we perceive feeling, which then our feelings then in return judges and determines what our actions and responses in the world would be. For example, we all know the perception of 2-year-olds, most of them, is mine, right? That's because their minds have not been shaped and formed or renewed yet, right? But for the moment, this is where their perception is. And this is what Paul is talking about. Any technique or approach that would help transform our minds must go far beyond the grasping of only information and cognitive information. It must go deep down in our side, our conscience, where our soul resides, where it intersects with God. That deep inner voice that directs and guides us, that all-knowing whisper. Have you ever heard God just whispering to you? It isn't something that's loud. No, that's not how God works. It is a soft whisper. And if we would just slow down long enough and be quiet and still. There it is. Yes, there it is. There is God. As Christians, we should feel propelled to want to transform our hearts and minds as Christ followers. Jesus clearly transformed his mind daily as he walked the earth, interacting with the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the leaders of the towns, and any other person that chose to deliver injustice to God's people. Jesus renewed his heart, his mind, his body, his spiritual transformation. It is the only way to gain access to the inner workings of our hearts, where we have access again to God's truth. And to be quite frank with you, our self-identity lies right there at that intersection. And to dig deep at that intersection so that we can discover who we are and why we are here. We are here again to get in touch with the truth of God that is seated in the very nature of who we are. Our very nature, our very being, the reason why we are here is that person. And we are to do God's work at that intersection in the community, in the church. God didn't create the world for us just to live incognito, to take the short road. God created us for something more, something greater. Amen. To make a change, a transformation, a renewing of minds in the world. To remain silent or to remain incognito is not honoring God.
Amen.
We honor God when we find that self-identity of who we are here. And then we begin to go into the world to teach the good news of God. Yes. So that we can help transform the world. We are called, again, you've heard me say this over and over again, and I will continue to say it. We are called not only for a self-called purpose, but for the purpose of finding ourselves through conscious awareness. Conscious awareness. What is that? What is that? Strange word. Have you ever felt that tugging? Tugging, just whatever it's saying, this way, go this way. You're off track. I'm calling you. Come back to your called purpose. If we are truly doing the work of mind and spiritual transformation, we as followers of Christ will begin to feel and see spiritual growth not only in ourselves, but in the people around us.
Amen.
It is hard work. It is no walk in the park. But as we take this journey, and on this journey we are called to take others with us. To teach others, to help shine the light, the Christ light, so people are able to follow. This requires the letting go of old beliefs and embracing new transformation. Holding on to old beliefs stifles our growth and slows transformation through the Christ light. As Jesus walked this earth during his ministry, he was instrumental in helping to transform cultures and people through their minds, their spiritual beings, their ideas, their concepts. He also helped deepen their spirituality. Jesus opened people's closed minds and hardened hearts by transforming their minds while transfiguring how they understood old rigid religious beliefs. For example, the Mosaic Law. Many of these old beliefs were intended to shame, control, and harm God's people. For example, let's take a look at John chapter 8, verses 3 through 11, NIV. As The reading's a little long, bear with me. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commands us to stone such women. Now, what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." In this scripture, Jesus transformed not only the Pharisees' minds, he also transformed their hearts and their attitudes. They were ready to stone the woman. Under the old law, Jesus transformed both the woman and the Pharisees through the transformation of grace. Grace transformed both the Pharisees' attitudes and the woman's shame. Jesus transformed how they perceived. Again, we're back to perception. Jesus transformed how they perceived their initial feelings about the adulterous woman. The Pharisees' old way of thinking was cruel, harsh, and as a matter of fact, ungodly. But Jesus was able to challenge the Pharisees' old way of thinking and expand their minds and open the door of grace in their hearts. Jesus also used justice as a way of seeking transformation. The woman didn't need condemnation. We've been in that place. We can relate on another level here with this woman. And things that we might have done wrong. We don't need somebody to come up to us and give us more condemnation. We realize that we messed up. We don't need that. We need grace. We need mercy. We need unconditional love. That's what we need.
Amen.
This is the transformational moment for Christ and the people that were involved here. And this is what I'm talking about with our daily lives when we interact with people. Again, she needed grace and mercy, which yielded justice and redemption. Redemption and justice wasn't possible for the woman under this old Mosaic law. But when Jesus offered her grace and mercy, it changed the woman's fate from condemnation to justice and reconciliation and restoration. Jesus said, "Let the one who has not sinned be the first to throw the stone." Humans, just by nature. This is why we've got to practice in not doing this. This is by nature. Humans love hierarchical social structure. And what that means is we love to put ourselves above people, other people. We love to put ourselves above people, right? To make ourselves better than the next person, more important, more smarter, prettier, thinner, whatever it is that society is deemed that was important. The Pharisees and the Sadducees were trained to be above people. And that's how they carried themselves, too. They saw themselves as better than, more important and smarter. They considered themselves more righteous than anyone else. They were the ones with the special knowledge, right? So they thought. The religious knowledge. And I'm speaking religious knowledge. In the first century Hebrew society, they used Sadducees and Pharisees in regards to trying to consider what was righteous or what was morally wrong in the community. They were used extensively for that. But I believe in this case, the first century Jewish religious leaders missed the mark in understanding righteousness as it pertained to this woman. They failed in renewing their hearts and minds that would have transformed their actions and their determination of who, again, their actions, right? How we perceive things determines how we're going to respond, right? But it did change to determine who was right or who was wrong. It changed. They were convicted. In Mosaic law, righteousness or being morally right was understood as a list of rules, conduct, society standards, guidelines that we must adhere to in order to be considered worthy or redeemed. In the John reading above, it wasn't the Pharisees' understanding of the Mosaic law that transformed the situation, the Pharisees and the woman. It was Jesus. Transformational power of unconditional love, grace, mercy, and justice. That is what transformed these scholarly people of the Sadducees and the Pharisees. And I don't want to leave out love. Jesus loved the woman even though she did not fit within society's redeemable standards. He loved her unconditionally, as God loves us.
Yes.
He showed her compassion. Here's a quote to ponder through the day, maybe through the week. A kind gesture can reach a wound that only compassion can heal. Steve Maraboli. Societies, communities, worldwide love to invent, again, a hierarchy of standards that assess whether we are good enough, whether people are good enough, to make the club, to make the team, sororities, and yes, even the church. In order to do the work of Christ, we must continue renewing and transforming our minds. It is a requirement in order to continue to follow where Christ is pointing us. Do you think that Christ was really following social norms? I mean, do you think really that he was there, that he was following all the rules? You know, sometimes it takes going against the current in order to make a difference. I mean, look at some of your world leaders who did this. Again, I'm going to bring up Martin Luther King again. Did he go within society, just floated along with society and said, okay, well, this is the way it is? No, he changed things. He transformed things. Talk about another hierarchical structure that we thought that we were better than. We won't go there, not in this sermon. We are not to make our decisions based on worldly standards. We are here to continue this process. We have to continue renewing our hearts and our mind so that we're able to see God's wisdom.
Amen.
I mean, if we remained listening to old beliefs, especially with some of the church fathers around sexuality, I'm not sure how many of you read some of the church fathers, but nevertheless, if we listen to them, the LGBT community wouldn't be released. Right? Even with the traditions from centuries to centuries to centuries, if people aren't bold enough to challenge those, then we continue the cyclical cycle of oppression, which is not the direction that God is headed. People in our current world, just like the Pharisees in John 8, they had power, they had social economical status, they had political positions, right? And in your community, these are the people that set the social standards. Sometimes it takes a little pushback there, right? They refuse to seek higher transformative thought patterns when dealing with God's people. Instead, they chose to use their position to conquer, divide, and belittle people instead of following Jesus' way of transformative thinking, which again leads our minds to other renewing thinking and how we see things. I learn every single day that I do exegetical work for these sermons. I learn something new every single time I do this. And the day that I don't do that is the day that I don't need to be doing it.
Principle of the full personality.
A ministry that is transformative must possess knowledge, wisdom, unconditional love, justice, grace, compassion, and mercy. But these qualities alone cannot induce sustainable change.
Amen.
One must grow themselves inwardly and spiritually. We are spiritually depleted here.
Amen.
It is time for us to look inward, to grow spiritually. Spiritual maturity focuses the transformation of our mind, our body, our spirit, and yes, our soul. The renewing of our mind transforms how we interact with people, with their thoughts or attitudes and feelings again. Our standards of acceptability should rest in God's standards. God's standards of what? What word comes to mind right off? Love, right? And not only just love, but unconditional love. Let unconditional love be what renews and transforms your heart. What will your story of transformation look like? Will you choose to renew and transform your mind so that it creates positive change in the world like Christ did in John 8? Christ mirrored God's unconditional love, which has the power to transform just about anything. It also has the power to unite God's people into something greater, something better, for a cause much greater than we are. Renewed minds brings unity instead of division. In order to be our most faithful selves, we need to wrap our minds around things in new ways. Ways that push and challenge us to better examine ourselves and our communities, our nations, and even our world. We have to do more than just show up. We have to think about it and then execute it always in love. It is easy to fall in the trap of just going through the motions without really engaging our minds. That's easy. What's the old saying? Half the battle is showing up, or 80% of the battle? Well, it's not enough. It's not enough just showing up. Jesus' ministry was transformative. Look at Luke 4:19. The Spirit of God is on me because God has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. God has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of God's favor. What if? What if we really believe that we're better together with renewed and transformative minds? Think of the change and expansion of God's people and God's church. Nobody said that transformational change was going to be a walk in the park. Amen. It's hard. Change is hard. Change happens when we commit our heart to God and God's people and God's church. Change begins right here in our personal hearts, in our commitment to God, and again in God's church. That is the first and foremost commitment. Change is impossible to accomplish without spiritual maturity in our hearts and renewed minds. In closing, God is in the transforming business, and this process takes time. Yes, sometimes it takes a year or even a couple of years. Renewed minds is a purposely crafted piece of artwork designed and molded by God that sin, well, I'll just skip the eggs, right? I'll skip this, right? That's disaster. God requires process. We require a process. Part of that process is a renewing of the mind, transforming of the mind. Transforming the mind is a process. And again, it's not unfortunate because this is the way that we learn. It takes time and seasons for us to transform. May God continue transforming our hearts and renewing our minds so that we are able to seek better and newer ways to serve God, God's people, and God's church.